There was a reason I didn't cover these commissions when they were going on during the Emergencies Act, mostly because I knew this was going to be the outcome. But even with full knowledge that this ruling was coming, it's just another nail in the coffin of Canada. Like this time last year, we were in the throes of the Freedom Convoy. It was covering it all, every single day, top to bottom, because they were fighting for a righteous cause. Tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people from all across the country, from sea to shining sea. As those truckers from coast to coast were rolling into the nation's capital, there were constant shows of support just like that. On bridges, overpasses, waving Canadian flags. I've never seen the likes of which before. Like, there's a gigantic streak of patriotism throughout the United States, which I can look on and see. It's like, that's amazing to see. You never see that up here in Canada. At best, if you're going around a neighborhood, you might see, out of 100 houses, you might be lucky to see 5, 10 Canadian flags flying. Like, maybe that might be pushing it. Even in my neck of the woods, where we're just, well, even still, like an Albertan flag or something like that up here in northern Alberta, that's still a lot. That is still probably on the high end of things. When this was going on, when the Freedom Convoy was in full swing for those 3 magical weeks, I seen more, Canadian flags flying off of people's vehicles with the little window stickers as well. People were rigging up hockey sticks and then had the flag and were sticking them in their hitch. It was really great to see, man. And even still, look at all those radicals on the street, dancing and just having a good time, waving, supporting the truckers that were down there. All of the people on the overpasses you can see as well. And that was the extent of this insurgency, free food and drink, helping and actually cleaning up after the homeless that were down there in Ottawa. These are the radicals, right? And this is the way that they were treated. Met with tear gas from Trudeau because he didn't want to deal with them anymore. Okay. And then eventually sending in his goon squad, having his horses come in there, step over, kick some people down to the ground, break a native lady's leg. There was no threat. Anything that you try to say about my Windsor Bridge, you were blocking that. That was already dispersed by the time the Emergencies Act was called. There was absolutely nothing unconstitutional about that protest. And Jagmeet Singh saying that, the entire purpose of the Freedom Convoy was to overthrow the government. Fucking how? How would that even be accomplished? But yet, another scandal and another thing Trudeau gets away with. I didn't have much faith left in Canada, but this just about did it in for me. Liberals, decision to evoke the Emergencies Act was justified, the commission says. What's your justification for this? Liberal government met the very high threshold for invoking the Emergencies Act to clear last winter's Freedom Convoy protest, which spiraled out of control because of failures in policing and federalism, the Public Order Emergency Commission said Friday. Because, the government wasn't cracking down? They weren't throwing enough old men honking their horn out of their vans onto the ground? You remember that video as well? Justice Paul Rouleau. Oh, you might remember who that dude is. He was put in place by Trudeau to conduct this investigation, and he's been a lifelong member of the Liberal Party. You can't make this up. The commissioner of the public inquiry said while the protests that blocked borders, clogged streets, and led to sharp divides in public opinion. I seen something that was running around. I couldn't find it now, but even a year on, 51% of poll respondents, and I can't prove this, I can't check sample size or anything like that because I just can't find it anymore. 51% of people thought that the Freedom Convoy was unconstitutional. That's another thing. It's like, wow, this country, man, do you think the divide in the United States is bad? At least there's a divide. At least there's somewhat equal parts. It's just the freedom-loving part, it's like 10%. In Canada, little pockets. Outside of that, a lot of it plays into 60 to 70% of people. I forget the exact number. I think it's high 60s. Work in some form or fashion for the government, either provincial or federal. That's why they're so deferential to authority. Had various police forces and levels of government prepared for the anticipated events of this type and acted differently in response to the situation, the emergency that Canada ultimately faced could likely have been avoided. That's interesting because it sounds like you're coming to a conclusion that, okay, there's a bunch of other things that they could have done before pulling the theoretical fire alarm. It's almost like coming to a conclusion that, okay, you call a professional to fumigate your house because you have a rat infestation, but then pest control shows up with a Tomahawk missile. Like, there are things you could have done before that, but... So Rouleau conducted his final report, released Friday. Unfortunately, it was not. He wrote the report, which is more than 2,000 pages. Yeah, I'm reading through all of that, liberal ass licking. Describes in painstaking detail the genesis of the protest, the response by the police, and different levels of government. I'm sure it's all very accurate and very true, as well as the actions of the protesters and the role social media and false information played in fueling the demonstrations. Oh, kind of like the ones that you guys were pushing, like how, the protesters, they were burning up apartment buildings, the one with the purple hair, who, after all of that stuff got dispersed, didn't hear any follow-up about that, or, oh my god, there was one guy that was down there at a protest about unconstitutional and unjust mask and vaccine mandates, how there was one person down there with a Nazi flag who was all covered up from toes to titties with a big mask over their face and sunglasses on that you couldn't see any of their faces. Yeah, no, definitely. That's probably not the misinformation or false information that you're talking about or anything like that. Of course not. Highly anticipated document is the culmination of more than 300 hours of testimony, 9,000 documents entered into evidence during 7 weeks of hearings last fall. I couldn't be asked to cover any of that stuff, mostly because I knew this was coming. Absolutely knew this was coming. The inquiry heard more than 100 witnesses, including Prime Minister and several other cabinet members, senior bureaucrats, of course, protest participants, police, and the city of Ottawa officials. Those protest participants that were also, just like Andrew Tate as well, snatched up unconstitutionally, held without bail. What's her name there? The one with the buck teeth. Sorry about that. Carla? She was held because some judge had a vendetta against her. Absolutely. It's so... I'd make jokes about this, but now it's just the entire country that's become one. Dickhead became the first prime minister to trigger the law since his father did it, but that was under a different name, so therefore it's fine. Triggered the law which allowed for temporary measures, including the regulation, prohibition of public assemblies, designation of secure places, direction to freeze bank accounts and assets, and ban the support for participation. It was revoked on February 23rd after the evocation of the act wouldn't make it through the Senate. Big weird on that one, don't you think? Rouleau, called it regrettable that the act was needed at all. But you came to the conclusion, it was regrettable. There were a lot of different ways that they could have gone about it, but they met the very high threshold. Speaking about the reports released, Castro repeated his position that he had no choice but to resort to the act to quell the unrest. Rouleau said that he would have preferred the leaders to draw a clear distinction and focused on how most protesters were exercising their democratic rights. So how did you come to your conclusion? At one point, he focused on how Trudeau had called protester members, of a fringe minority that hold unacceptable opinions. That one, you need to finish out the quote. Trudeau admitted Friday he regrets saying things that way. No, he doesn't, because it got across exactly what he needed it to. Conservative leader Polly Pocket, speaking at an event in Calgary on Friday, call him that because he never went down to the protest. Fucking grifter. Accused Trudeau of mishandling the economy and dividing the country so the protesters felt the need. Yeah. No, it was all about the unjust mandates that you were tight-lipped about, but you like to make a bunch of stink about it after the fact. Rouleau found most of the specific emergency measures the Trudeau government used were appropriate and reasonable. Most of them. Very high threshold. But described others, such as power to suspend vehicle insurance, as counterproductive. It's not very good. We're not glad that you did that, but are you going to punish him for it? No. That particular measure could have been dangerous. It could have been dangerous, the commissioner said, because they wouldn't be going around with vehicle insurance? What the... Oh, my God. A report says it views as so problematic that the RCMP decided not to provide a list of designated persons taking part in the protest to insurance companies. Oh, okay. It also said that while measures to freeze bank accounts were reasonable... Sorry, what? That's reasonable. You're down there adhering to everything. But the honking! The honking was done within a couple of days after there was a lawsuit put forward. And they got the stay. and the honking ceased. Such unreasonable characters that you needed to invoke a war times measure. You need to enact a martial law provision to shut down law-abiding citizens that are done with your unconstitutional power grabs. Ugh. Reasonable to freeze bank accounts. There should have been a clear way to delist protesters once they had left the blockade so they could regain access to their assets. Yeah, there should have been. Are you going to punish them? No, of course not. Finance minister. Oh, she's from my neck of the woods, right? I'm so happy she got accosted at the city hall by a Bubba or Cletus or whatever that brave individual's name was with the ripped up jeans and the wife beater. Oh, good for him. Said that there are lessons to learn. Yeah, lessons to learn after you ruined people's lives. Fucking disgusting. Overall, Rouleau made 56 recommendations, with 27 directed how to improve police operations. You just get fucked, because this is what they're going for, man. Why the word freedom is such a useful rallying cry for protesters has become a common among far-right groups, experts say. Canada is... I don't want to say it, but fuck it, I'll say it. It's lost. Canada's done. It's an authoritarian state. It's a communist hellhole. Trudeau can do whatever the fuck he wants at any time, and he will face zero repercussions for it. And yeah, it's nice to see some people take to the streets on Saturday, go down there, just call for his resignation. But guess what? Shit's not going to happen because he can get away. He can push his message using any one of his fucking mouthpieces that are out there. The CBC, they will just parrot anything that the Liberal Party talks about. It's been that way for 20, 30, 40 years at this point in time. Anything. The Liberals take a shit, the CBC are there to wipe its ass. The way that this country has fallen apart in the past 7, 8 years since Trudeau came in, it's unrecognizable. It was hastened quite a bit during these tyrannical lockdowns, and the moment the people just wanted to rekindle some of their freedom, oh, sorry, that's Nazi talk. You put down the boot right on their necks and snuff out any of their optimism, and guess what? You get the green light from your party that investigated yourself and figured out, oh, we didn't do anything wrong. Get fucked, all of you. This country is so screwed. So yeah, be more uplifting next. I got another Canadian story, I think, coming out. Depends on how everything shakes out. Tomorrow might be a very busy news day. I don't know anything about that. But with all that said, thank you all very much for the gift of your time. I've been Don Consuelo. I want you to follow your gut and get after it. Take care, everyone.